Hello. Hello, everyone. This is Allison Gross. I have some ochre stuck in my teeth, sorry. Um, Welcome to my second episode of TMI Corner. I have a big problem that this webcam, makes reflections a lot. So I'm trying to avoid that. So, this this episode, occasionally we will have episodes that are not all about periods and stuff like that. Because we're also going to be talking about my mental and emotional state in these videos. So, one of the things is that I'm not going to say a terrible fear of flying. It feels that way to me sometimes. I think as people go, it's actually probably pretty mild. Um, but it's something that really, really bothers me because I grew up flying. My father is a professor an urban planning professor at a university specifically, and so he's done a lot of overseas work, and where the university has exchange programs, and he gets hired to go do planning work in other countries and stuff. um he has a long running exchange program with Japan. There was a period where he went to Japan every year. Uh, the family went with him twice while I was growing up. There were two occasions where I spent about 2 months in Japan. And then there was also a period where we spent close to a month in Indonesia one time. And he also, he did projects in Israel and South Africa and stuff, which we didn't go with him because of safety issues. But what would happen is that we would all fly to Europe, and then my mom and I, like we would the rest of us would go to Europe while he was at these conferences, and then he would come back and join us. And so there was a period where we were spending about a month in Europe every summer. It was actually really cool because for a while my brother was living in Hungary, and so my mother and father and I would fly to Paris, and he would drop us off there and would fly off to go to his conference. And then my brother would fly in and meet us, and we would travel around Europe, and then my father would fly back and meet up with us when his conference was done. And this is how I lived growing up. From the age of my first trip to Japan, I was 6, I think, until I graduated from high school when I was almost 20. So 15 years of just intense traveling all the time. I got to the point where actually the last flight we went to Italy, on the way to Italy, because the thing that happened that made me afraid to fly happened on the way home from Italy, when this was my first year in college, so I was 20 at the time. Um, and that flight, um, we flew to Amsterdam. I think this was when we were always transferring through Amsterdam, which we stopped after that because fuck KLM and the Amsterdam airport. Seriously. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but if they do, fuck them. We transferred to another flight to fly to Italy, and so we flew over the Alps, and it was gorgeous, and I wanted to be awake to see it. Um, And I was so exhausted from the jet lag of the transatlantic trip that I was just asleep the entire time. But here's the thing, like, so we boarded the flight to Italy, and I sat down and I passed out. Like, that was how tired I was. And then, you know, and I kept trying to be awake to see the Alps, and like my mom and my brother and stuff kept being like, wake up, wake up. Actually, I don't think my brother was with me yet, but my parents were like, wake up, you need to see the Alps. And it was really gorgeous. There were all these forests and like snow valleys and stuff. But that was the thing. I sat in my seat, I passed out, I woke up, we were in the air. Like, I was sound asleep during takeoff, which is, that's how relaxed I was on a plane. Like, I could just sit down and go to sleep and sleep through takeoff. And then we were on the flight back, and it was especially frustrating because we had gotten put on an earlier flight, and then they printed our boarding passes wrong. So they booted us off that flight, all of us except my brother. It was very emotionally traumatic because we got separated from him because they printed my parents and my boarding pass wrong, but not his, so they forced him to get on the earlier flight, and we had to wait several hours for another flight. And if they hadn't printed our boarding passes wrong and had put put us on the flight that we were supposed to be on, this never would have happened. It's one of those weird things that's just like, and I was already emotionally a wreck because I was kind of, during the trip, my first boyfriend kind of cheated on me and was like in the process of trying to break up with me, sort of. And I didn't obviously fully know this, but I knew something happened, like, because he was emailing me constantly, and like, I didn't check my email for like 6 days, and I got there and there was just like this page of emails from him, and then I started emailing back, and suddenly something changed and he just didn't respond anymore. And I found out later that there was this party and this thing happened with him and this girl at this party, and but the thing was, I sensed it, so I was already, and I was in this phase where I was very afraid of dying during that period because he was an atheist and blah blah blah. Anyway, so all of that emotional stuff was sort of going on in me, and then I was really distraught because of this thing where our flight suddenly got changed and we got separated from my brother and everything. So we're on the plane, and it's been like, 6-7 hours, totally jet lag, whatever, and I go to sleep, and I'm sound asleep. And it actually, like, I don't remember if it was that flight or the flight over or something, but when I was younger, turbulence didn't really bother me. Like, I've read now that that people who are not nervous about flying actually prefer low-grade turbulence to no turbulence, because it's like being in a cradle, that it produces the same relaxing feeling as if you rock a baby in a cradle. And I have experienced that. Like, I remember one time when we were sitting and the plane was rocking, it was actually, bouncing around quite a bit, and I was very drowsy, and I just felt my body kind of flopping with the sensation. And it was actually, on a certain level, kind of soothing for me. And especially, like, I knew that turbulence usually wasn't dangerous, and when they announce it, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be hitting some turbulence, woo. So I passed out again. I was sound asleep, and we hit like a low pressure zone or something. Like, the air pressure abruptly changed such that, because the plane suddenly ran into this low pressure zone, it dropped probably, only a few feet. But I woke up, like, I don't know if the sensation of dropping woke me up, or the sound of all the people around me freaking out woke me up. But the point is, I didn't know if they'd said, oh yeah, we're going to be hitting some turbulence, don't worry. I just woke up and we were falling, and I hear people around me screaming, and somebody screaming, "How far down is it?" And because of the sort of depressive, like, morbid fixation I had on the time, I was like, oh my God, are we crashing? And then my mom, who's next to me, and my mom has is kind of alarmist. My brother and I had a conversation a while back about how he would feel the need to sort of do risk taking behavior as an adult to make up for how overly protected he was as a child. Um, but she was very, like, protective and easily alarmed and stuff. So I'm sitting there, like, I'm still groggy, and I'm like, oh God, what's going on? And she grabs me and goes, get in brace position, get in brace position. And I don't know, I don't understand what brace position does or anything, but I was just like, oh shit, we're going to crash. And then I just remember looking down between my feet and seeing the, like, sort of, gray striped carpet on the floor of the plane as I feel it drop, and my life is flashing before my eyes. And I've since learned that that probably means nothing, and that there's no, turbulence does not cause planes to crash, whatever. I didn't know it at the time, and I was in a very bad place emotionally, and it just locked. And the fact that, within a few days of me getting back, and of course when I see my boyfriend, I'm like, oh my God, I was going to die. I thought I would never see you again. And within a week, he had broken up with me, and I found out he was cheating on me, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, this created this thing that I was terrified of flying, because I thought that I was taking my life in my hands to get on a plane. And I dealt with that for years, and it has created losses that I will never be able to recover from, because I didn't travel anymore. And then my mom died. And those family vacations that we had in Europe, I could have had another 10 years of those. And I will never have them again now. And that's just something that I have to live with. But so I started seriously when I met, well, not met, but when I entered into a relationship with Fornius online, I was like, shit, because we didn't know. We thought at the time that he was going to be in Australia for 3 more years to finish school, and we were like, how are we going to make this work? Because he has to be there for school, and I have to be here, like, for my job, except for during the summer. So we sort of had this idea where when it was summer here, I would go to Australia, and when it was summer in Australia, he would come here. And I was like, that's a 24-hour flight. Somehow I have to be able to do this. So I started trying to work on it. And I went to see a hypnotherapist. I had done various therapies and things to try to get over it in the past, and they didn't work. And hypnotherapy seemed to be the ticket for me. It's the ticket for me for a lot. I wish I could, instead of seeing a therapist or taking antidepressants or something, I could just see a hypnotherapist for my depression, because I think that's what would really help me the most. But I can't, because seeing a hypnotherapist, at least in a big city where I live, is $200 for a 1-hour session, and I can't afford to do that very often. Me doing my initial sequence of sessions to treat my fear of flying was like $650, $700. And I coughed that up because for me to be able to travel to go see Fornius was that important. And the reason that hypnotherapy, I think, works so well for me is because I overthink everything. Like, when somebody, when a therapist tries to, reframe things for me or something, like, mentally and emotionally, I fight it, because my mind is like, I see the trick you're trying to do here, and I can overthink it. And the thing is that hypnotherapy doesn't interact with your conscious mind at all. It goes, crap, my battery is running low. Let's just pause this. Okay, here we go. I've got a kitty wedged in next to me now. Because, it's not really something you can overthink. It bypasses your conscious mind, or it distracts your conscious mind and keeps it occupied while it works on your unconscious mind. So like my hypnotherapist, one of the things that she does is she's like, imagine you're standing in front of a blackboard, or on a sandy beach, or whatever, and she's like, take a writing implement and write the letter A and then erase it, and write the letter B and then erase it, and then just keep writing and erasing the letters of the alphabet, and I will be speaking in the background, and pay no attention to me. And this is really powerful and really effective for me because it occupies my conscious mind, so I can't be like, oh, well, I know what this is doing and I know why that's not going to work. Because my brain is being occupied, and so the stuff can work on a deeper level. And one of the things that she did for me was to regress. That's one of the things that you do in hypnotherapy, is you can regress somebody to an earlier point in their life. And I hate these reflections. And since I had that period in my life where I was completely relaxed about flying, she basically was like, I am, going to regress you. Your brain is going to revert to the state it was in before you flew into the low pressure zone, before you hit the air pocket, is what they said. I recently did some research and found out that air pockets do not exist, so whatever, but we, in lay speak, we call them air pockets. This video is becoming really long, and I don't mean for these videos to be long, but this is kind of complicated. So I then asked my father, hey, he said, oh, I'm going to California like next week to visit your brother. And I'm like, can I come with you? And it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, so I didn't have a lot of time to worry. I did worry a lot. And then it was like the plane took off, and it was like exactly what the hypnotherapy said. My brain had regressed. And it was just like all of the deeper, like muscle memory, but you're not doing anything, just took over. And it was like I was totally calm. I don't even remember the flight back from California at all, because I was that calm. Like I don't remember takeoff or anything. And then I did some very stupid things. Basically I was like, ooh, I'm cured. And then Fornius moved here, and so me being able to travel was no longer an issue, and I had no money to travel because supporting him is freaking expensive, and I was working all the time to try to earn the money just to do that, so I had no time for traveling either. And so I didn't fly again for 2.5 years. And the thing is that, at least until you really deeply cement it, apparently I found out, yes, even if you do hypnotherapy and you fix a problem, you have to listen to the sessions again. You have to keep refreshing it. You have to, keep doing the thing to drive the programming deeper. Eventually you get to a point where it doesn't really degrade, but presumably, or you get to the point where it's not just the hypnotherapy that's doing it as part of your regular. Presumably if I flew enough, I would get back to the point where I'm comfortable and I wouldn't need to constantly retrain my brain. But I didn't know any of this. So I decided to treat myself to going on a cruise in the fall, or in December. So I, booked the cruise, and it's going to be an exciting thing because it's like, Fornius and I taking a trip together, and because I used to go on cruises with my ex-husband, and I want to, flush that out and everything. And we always had to drive to the coast because I couldn't fly, which always pissed him off because it limited where we could go. But I hate driving, and Fornius does not have a driver's license, so I would have to drive for 3 days straight to get to the coast, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. And besides, I want to go someplace different, as a way to be we're not just reiterating the same cruise that I did with him. So we're taking a cruise that sails from Miami, so we have to fly to Miami, which is only like maybe a 2 hour flight. But of course, I got nervous about it. So then I was like, let's go to California, like this summer as a practice. And so we went, and it was okay. And I was like, I'm going to listen to my sessions, and I'm going to get back in practice. And then something, which I'll talk about in a different TMI episode, because that's related to the menstrual thing that happens in most TMI episodes, that caused me extreme anxiety. And so I didn't actually do that because I was busy worrying about this other thing. And also my anxiety was really bad already at that point. That literally that issue got resolved maybe 6 hours before. And then we had this weird thing where a flight got canceled and we had to get rescheduled for the next morning and blah, 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 blah. So that whole thing was crazy. And so I had much higher anxiety than I wanted to have. But I was like, still, this is, you know, it was survivable, and the flight to Florida will be shorter. And then my father, remember how I said my father works in all these international things, and I really need more work, and I really, oh, look at the kitty. And I really need the money. So he went to Romania. He goes to Romania several times a year because he has a professorship at a university there. And he's like, oh, hey, by the way, I got you hired to come do a workshop here in the fall. And, you know, because I'm supposed to be editing their journal already, except nothing's come from that. And there's some talk that, like, they might actually hire me to teach classes or at least do more workshops or something. You know, it could be a good source of income. So I can't really not do it. So why am I making this video right now? Because we leave in 4 days. And I have not crossed the Atlantic in 15 years because, since I was with my ex-husband, like the first year that I was in college, like when I was with him, I forced myself to go. Like I drugged the hell out of myself on my final trip to Europe with my family. And I was miserable, and then I never did it again because that was so horrendous. So yeah, this is a big deal. It's not just business though. It's also like I want to do this because I see me not being able to fly as part of this sort of limiting thing that was part of my negative relationship with him, and I want to get rid of that. So I've been being really, really nervous about this the past few days, and there's a lot of not just nerves, but a lot of self-loathing in me because I'm like, I hate the fact that this is such a huge issue for me because it used to be so goddamn easy. So I've been doing, I want to talk about some of the stuff I do. I went back to see the hypnotist and I've done more hypnosis sessions, and there's a number of, she says these things like when you're hypnotized, it's supposedly seeking to like your subconscious mind that's like flying is totally safe. There's no reason to be nervous while flying. You've done this before. You remember feeling totally relaxed and that sort of thing. But she also teaches you like these techniques to dissipate anxiety while you're in a hypnotic state, but then you can use them anyway. One of them is this thing where basically she calls it the fist technique, where you just clench your fist and you just clench as hard as you can and pour all of your tension into your fist and then open it up. And you can do that actually with your whole body, like just tensing and relaxing different muscles. And the idea for this is actually what you're doing is ratcheting up your tension to an even higher level. So then when you, when you release that, it brings it back down. And I also do a lot of yoga, and doing exercise or doing yoga, while I'm just sitting around these days leading up to it helps, relax me and bleed off the anxiety. But there's also like specific, yoga techniques in the moment to deal with anxiety, and one of them is the same thing. It involves like artificially elevating your anxiety and then flushing it out. And it involves a breathing pattern where you take lots of little tiny short breaths in, and then you breathe out really slowly and calmly. And you can do this hand gesture where you bring your hands up and then lower them. Doing that on a plane is not going to work so well, but it's like, and or there's another one where you're like, the alternating the fast breathing and the slow breathing is supposed to help. There's some other things that the yoga does. One of them is breathe in through your mouth, hold, breathe out through your nose, breathe in through your nose, hold, breathe out through your mouth. Which it's like, I think part of what this one does is it's like the brain distraction thing that I was talking about, that since you're concentrating on alternating your breathing properly, you're not thinking as much about being nervous. And the last one, which is the one I used a ton when I went to California a couple years back, that I found really effective. It's called like breathing with your hands like a teapot. It sounds stupid. Basically, you take one hand, you close the other hand around it, you put your thumbs together like this, and you hold them about here. This is going to be hard to see on the camera. So, and then you look down, and you're going to see there's this little hole right here in between your thumbs. And essentially, what you want to do, you breathe in through your nose, and you breathe out through your mouth as slowly and lightly as you can. And the idea is that you focus on trying to blow in between your thumbs. And I found that this one works really well for me. But you see, like, how long I spent on that exhale, and the idea is to try to do it even longer than that, and really controlling your breath to do it slowly. And like I said, um, I've found that one to be very effective for me. Uh, the So doing the thing where you tense your muscles, I found that for me, anxiety registers in three ways. It's shallow, uncontrolled breathing, muscle tension, and rapid heart rate. So, doing the thing where you make the fist and you tense your muscles and then you relax it corrects the muscle tension, and you can do it through your whole body too. The different breathing patterns uh, deal with the uncontrolled breathing. Heart rate is my weakness. I have a really hard time, like, actually, when I was flying to California, I had this thing where, I was doing this stuff, and I was sitting there, and my entire body, like my muscles were all like jelly. I was totally relaxed, my breathing was shallow, and my heart was just doing this the entire time, which then it's like, hello, you're still nervous, so, and I don't really know any good solution to that. The hypnotherapist put in, one of the things, suggestion of like, when you think calming thoughts, when you breathe slowly, your heart will slow down, and hypnosis can control the heart rate to a certain extent. I've been trying that the last few days, and there seems to be some success to it. Okay, so the other technique that she did on me is this thing that she refers to as Godiva chocolate, because it's about creating an association between a positive and a negative. And apparently, like, for her, the positive thing is Godiva chocolate, or maybe she worked with somebody where it was, I don't know. But it's like, touch your arm like up here, like on your tricep, and think about and get really in touch with something really positive that you like, and then you move your hand down here, and the thing that causes you anxiety is this thing that is this place on your hand, and you get in touch with that, and then you switch back and forth between them, and gradually you do it more and more so that they blend together. And so for me, you may or may not know that I do aerial, and maybe I'll talk about that in another video as well. But that's the thing for me, that was my Godiva chocolate thing. And this hypnotherapist that I see is really great, like, because she totally, she talks to you beforehand, not just about what you want to cover in the sessions, but like all these little details, and then inserts them into the sessions. So for me, I'm terrified of heights, and I'm terrified of the sensation of falling. Like the thing where, if you change height so rapidly that you feel your stomach flip, I hate it. Like, I'm deathly afraid of that sensation. Needless to say, I do not ride roller coasters ever. I never have in my life. I have no desire to do so. And so, go figure. Obviously, this contributes to me not wanting to fly, but aerial, you have to deal with that shit all the time. And it's something that I do voluntarily. And part of the difference is I'm in control in aerial. Like, I'm holding on. I choose when I let go, rather than it's something that's forced on me, which for me personally makes a big difference. But, so she, did this whole thing where it's like, feel the sensations that you feel at aerial, where you feel in control and you feel, courageous about doing this thing, and you transfer that into the experience of flying. So this video is ridiculously long already. I wanted to share that experience, because obviously it's a big thing that I'm dealing with in my life, and it's like a vulnerable thing that I don't like talking about. And to talk about some of these techniques. Oh yeah, the other technique that I use is listening to metal, because that trips my adrenaline, and it changes, like, it changes my perception really radically. I was in aerial, and we climb a lot at the beginning of class. Like, we have to go up and down the silks in silk class like 4 times at the beginning of class, and I'm just like dead after that, and I have to rest or do something easy for a long time. And I was learning this thing called a straddle drop, or it is sometimes called a death drop, because it involves you upside down, and when you're in silks and you drop, you're wrapped so that the silks will catch you. But it's really terrifying, because you wrap and then you let go, and you trust that they will get you. And when you are in the straddle drop or the death drop, you are upside down, and when you let go, you are literally falling headfirst towards the floor. And I'd only done this a couple of times, and it's also kind of hard for me to get into, because you have to climb up high enough so you don't actually hit the floor when you come down, and then flip upside down and and then flip right side up, and then flip upside down again as part of the wrap for it. And AC/DC's Hell's Bells came on. That was one of the things they were playing with the sound system, and I'm like, yeah, I know I just climbed, but I don't care. I'm not staying on the ground while they're playing this. So I just go and I just climb up and just basically flawlessly do the thing, and just let go and drop without even thinking about it. And the instructor is sitting there, and she's like, she does like a double take, and she's like, wait, what just happened there? Because I've been having a lot of trouble with this move, and it was like so fast that she didn't even really see it. And I like flip out of it and come down, and I'm like, that was saying that you need to play more metal. And she was confused. But so one of the things I'm going to be doing is making a playlist because now that they don't make you turn off your electronic devices anymore, at least not your iPhones, I can put this playlist of songs on the iPhone and actually listen to it during takeoff. Takeoff is the thing I'm the most nervous about. Actually, I'm not even this is the thing. I'm not even actually nervous about takeoff, really. The thing that I'm nervous about is sitting on the tarmac waiting, taxiing down the runway. Like that moment where you turn and you see the runway and you know you're about to take off and they say flight attendants prepare for the departure. That's actually the worst moment for me. And this is the thing, and my father's like, oh, this is good that you realize this, but I'm like, it doesn't help. So it's not the actual flying that bothers me. It's this whole drawn out process. Like the things that freak me out the most to think about are lining up and showing your boarding pass and going through, and then finding your seat and sitting down and getting buckled in, and then hearing that they're closing the door of the aircraft, and then sitting there while they taxi. Like I fly out of O'Hare Airport in Chicago and it's massive and the taxi takes like 20 minutes. Seriously, I hate it. And so yeah, so I might make some post footage for this video after the trip, like while I'm in Romania. I might even make some during footage. Like Florian and I are planning on doing some LPing on the flight, so I might record this, a follow up to this. I don't know, just to let you know what's going on. Yeah, so there's that. Sorry, I will try to make these videos shorter in the future. Bye.